Or like the guys that would have been arguing with us from the other side were all, probably related to that guy. And no, it was actually other anglers. And I think that, and I don't know, this, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this isn't like an all out war on all commercial fishing or anything like that.
No.
Seems to be a very specific, and now that you told me it's a Canadian company, I mean, screw them. I thought it was an American company. I was going to try to like find the middle ground. Screw Canada.
So the fishing continues to be pretty good with yellow dog paddle. Mike Herman still continuing to troll Round Valley. Started picking up a decent amount of pretty large perch, yellow perch, and gave Chris the info on it. Chris went there. Katie got her 10 Skillful Angler fish for the Grandmaster because of the perch. Thanks to Yellow Dog Paddle's info. So thanks to Mike. But yeah, if you're looking to do a trolling trip, fishing's still hot on Round Valley. It's starting to get a little cold, but the colder it gets, the fish are coming up higher. A lot of action. It's really good and easy for kids. Call Yellow Dog Paddle today. Hello and welcome to episode number 81 of the NJ Multi-Species Podcast. I am your host, Joe Santiago. As always, my partner, Chris Pereira.
Cheers. Were we on video today?
There he is, right over there. We do have video back. Unfortunately, last week's episode was taken down by a massive Verizon service crash Monday night. We panicked. We were able to save the audio, but we lost the video. Well, we have the video, but it would give you a seizure if you watched it.
Yeah, I told everyone that it was due to Deuce's excessive porn downloading.
It could be that. That could be part of the entire Verizon power outage to begin with. Anyway, right along, we got to move fast. Tonight's guest is Paul Eidman. I think I'm saying it right. Probably not. He is he the leader of that? I don't know if
I am not 100% sure, but
he's a major player in the Menhaden Defenders, which are people that are basically protecting the bunker. It's going to be an interesting conversation. It seems to be a heated combo online. So we are going to get to him.
It took me by surprise. I thought it was pretty straightforward, but apparently not.
I thought it was going to be straightforward myself, but then when I saw the thread, I said, "Holy shit, these guys are fighting over." Then somebody called me a tree hugger or something. Like what? I have no idea what I even did.
I mean, in your defense, I think that was Tarnowski, so I would take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, I believe everything he says. Anyway, the NJF Christmas Party, I'll explain basically what's going on. The Christmas Party is sold out. We sold out faster than we expected. The prize list continues to grow. I don't want to start naming them because then I have to name them all, but there's like at least 10 guided trips on there. There's party boat passes. There's gift certificates.
Can I just give one, though? Because one got upgraded. Can I just give it?
Okay, we'll do one.
So the gambler upgraded their donation prize. So they had originally given 2 spots for one of their open boat trips. He texted me before. They're upgrading it to let me just get this right. 24-hour tile fish trip and a hat and a t-shirt.
Ooh.
So instead of a regular open boat trip that costs, whatever, I don't know what the price is these days, $90, $100, whatever it is. This is a 24-hour tile fish trip. I don't know what the price is, but it's quite a lot more than that. That's not even updated yet. I didn't pass that information on to Jerry yet.
There's a lure from Adam Mahara. There's a float trip with Joey Extra Long Name, who just got his license, is starting a guide business up in the Catskills. There's a float trip with Sweetwater, I think, too. There's a trip with...
No. I don't think so. All right, don't start naming stuff because now you're getting it all wrong. If you want to, I just wanted to do the one that's updated before it's.
I'm pretty sure Sweetwater gave something. I gotta look.
I think he gave some kind of a prize pack. I think a hat and like a discount for a trip. And it's not a full trip.
I know Yellow Dog Paddle gave a trip. Right. Eddie Mackin has a trip. Jerry Pastorino threw his hat in the ring with 2 passes on to the fishmonger. Usually whoever wins those, I try to buy them from them before they leave the party. But
now you just got to name every prize.
I'm not going to name them all. They're online, njfishing.com. You could see them on the website. The whole thread continues to update live as the prizes come in. The guest list is also there. Next to the guest list, it either says paid or it doesn't. If it doesn't say paid by December 2nd, we do have a waiting list of people that are waiting to get a party ticket. So if by December 2nd you haven't paid for your ticket, it doesn't say paid on that list, you're going to get knocked off that list for someone who did pay. So if you're on the list and plan on coming to the party, please get that money paid and settled by December 2nd. And that's pretty much cut and dry.
Yeah, we're not trying to be like dicks about this, but last year, every year in the past, Jerry would collect money at the door, and these are much smaller parties, and that's how it was done. Last year, we collect money at the door, and a couple of douchebags just didn't show up and didn't pay, so it kind of screwed us.
Well, and also, but it's at a restaurant. It was at a restaurant, so if someone didn't show up like that, we didn't really have to pay for them. But this time, because we're hiring a caterer per person, we're paying per person. So if you're going to the Christmas party, we're paying for your dinner. That means if you don't pay us, we're going to lose the money. So you have to be paid on that list by December 2nd, or you'll just be replaced. And also, if you do want to come to the Christmas party and you're not on the list, you could get in touch with me and Chris or Jerry Zagorski and get on the waiting list, because we're sure some people are just not probably going to pay. Moving on to fishing reports, things have been like really weird. Hunting has been weird. Fishing's been weird. It was a full moon. Chris, what did you fish for? Well, you want to tell your perch story?
I mean, I gotta. I mean, so the long story short, Katie finally got her 10th Skillful Angler qualifier for the Grandmaster Angler Achievement, which, I mean, besides any specific type of fish, which some of them are really hard to get, I'd say that's the hardest achievement, right? I mean,
no, it isn't. The Trout Slam is, in my opinion.
I don't know.
I beat this master angler shit in 3 months, so I don't care. No, the Trout Slam, I'm still chasing. We went
over this already. You stole fish from Kids Derby, but
no, that's one fish. I'm telling you, I've been doing both of them for an entire year. I beat the master angler, no problem. I'm actually over it. I have over 10. The Trout
all you
Slam.
Had to do was come trout fishing me the one day that I invited you, and you could have caught that rainbow trout.
Yeah, well, that one. Listen to me, in my own opinion, it's the Trout Slam. I asked him. He said it's never been done, but I understand it's never really been possible.
Wow.
Even though you're going to say, "Oh, well, now it's possible," it still ain't that. It's still, you can see I'm struggling for it. I mean, I'm out of time.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not
diminishing the difficulty of the Grand.
No, I get what you're saying. But anyway,
I mean, if you really get technical, like it, the offshore slam is the hardest one to get.
I don't know enough about that, but I think some of those might be impossible as well. They might have to change them, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, I mean, if you don't know what the Skillful Angler program is at this point,
Andrew still thinks you could just turn in any sunfish, catch any sunfish you want, to just turn it in. They hand you a certificate. Every fish. I'm not doing this either.
No, but anyway, just so anyone knows, so they're not confused. Each species of fish in New Jersey has a set minimum size for the program. If you catch one that's that size or bigger, you can submit it. All right. the new achievement this year that they brought back after a while of not having it was catching 10 different species over. Each one has to be over a certain size. You can't have any duplicates for this one. It's got to be 10 different unique species over the size limit. So she didn't plan on doing this because it takes a lot of time fishing, and she ended up getting pregnant. So that's even less time to fish. But she ended up just by chance kind of, she got a random giant channel catfish, got a random giant black sea bass out of season that I had to release.
The sea bass, I remember that.
Stuff like that. So she ended.
And it's actually, in my opinion, it's out of all the certificates the state sends, it's the nicest one that I've ever gotten.
I just
have you seen it?
I don't care what they sent. No, I haven't seen it.
You want to see it? I'll show it to you.
Oh, they send it already?
Oh yeah.
All right. Anyway, I'm gonna keep talking. So she ended up getting 9 species, right? And we're like, oh, at this point, we have to get the. Is that actually gold stamped?
Yeah. I don't know.
Step up.
Can you see it with the glare?
Yeah, I can see it.
And it lists all 10 of the fish, and it's pretty cool.
All right, that's pretty cool. I'm kind of hoping they upgrade us to like the engraved plaques like the hunters get for the deer. But anyway,
no one cares about the fishermen.
Yeah. So anyway, so she's stuck on this. She has 9 species. She needs one more, and out of the ones that she needs, every time she doesn't come fishing, me or the person I'm fishing with's catching the fish, like one of the fish that she needs. We got salmon a bunch of times, pickerel a bunch of times, walleye, perch. I don't know. I don't think we had. But anyway, those are some of the species. Any one of those species just needed one more. And we're going nuts trying to get this one fish. And she's like, she's 8 months pregnant at this point. So she's like, I'm uncomfortable. I can't sit in the boat that long. I'm like, this can't end on 9. We have to do it. Yeah. So she really wanted to do it. And I got some real prime info from Mike at Yellow Dog Paddle, right? He had, by chance while he was trolling for trout and Lakers and stuff, he ran into some perch, and there was a lot of big ones in the school perch. And I'm like, Mike, are you just randomly running into these perch, or are they targetable? And he's like, no, I think they're targetable. He's like, I'm not targeting them, but I think you could target them. And he told me kind of where to look and stuff. And I went over there and I couldn't quite find what he was talking about. I called him while I was on the water and he gave me a little bit more information, like on the spot while I was looking. I'm like, I'm here. I'm looking at the thing. And he guided me a little bit more over the phone, and bam, we were able to get a nice big perch. I forget how big it was, but it was well over 13 inches. I think it was almost 14 inches. And I don't know. It was awesome. I mean, it sounds, it's a perch, but it's like what I call it, the Chuck Manny effect, when you're trying to catch a random fish, like when we fish with Chuck over the summer, and he's like, all right, guys, we need dogfish or we need a skate. It's like all of a sudden they're all gone.
The Skillful angler program makes bullhead catfish exciting. It makes anything crappie. I love it because you could the sea bass. That's one I've actually been trying for years. Like, I want that certificate. I've never been able to get it, and she just got it. She got it on accident, right? Weren't we blackfishing?
We were blackfishing, yeah.
Yeah,
I've gotten 2. I've gotten 2 over the years.
I never have gotten one. That one that she brought up might have been the biggest one I ever saw in person. But that's I would love to have the sea bass certificate. I don't have it.
I'll tell you right now, out of the 2 that I've gotten, one was while I was sea bass fishing, but the other one was while I was striper fishing, throwing like a 9-inch paddle tail swim bait, and like a 22-inch sea bass ate it. I thought I was reeling in a weed because I had the heavier gear.
Oh, God.
There's a giant sea bass hanging on it.
We know Katie Lynn is also now. Katie Lynn caught a perch today. She's at 9 fish. So she is she could be the second female. We are rooting for Katie Lynn to get that 10th species. Really should get down to the beach and go after the striper. She also doesn't have a walleye yet, though, and she lives very close to a pack-on. So I would think the walleye is her best shot of actually doing it. I hope she does, and there'll be 4 of us that actually did it, and that'll be cool.
Yeah, but I mean, I know Max was trying, but it sounds like he gave up like a bitch.
I think Max got his master. I don't know what they have. I don't know. They're getting beaten by girls. That's all I know. That's for definite. That's definitely for sure. We know girls are beating them. Moving on. Sunday we have a very busy weekend. Saturday we're fishing with NYC stripers. We haven't had a chance to fish with him yet. We've been talking about fishing with him for a while. That should be cool. I'm probably going to make a video of that. And then Sunday, I believe for the first time ever, I'll be stepping onto the fishmonger to blackfish in the fall.
You just cursed it.
I mean, it probably is cursed, but the last fluke one I missed. I've been waiting to blackfish. I've gotten on there in the spring, which I don't even like, but I'll go anyway. But I've always wanted to blackfish off the fishmonger in the fall, and I'm finally going to get a shot. And I'm going to catch one over 10 pounds, too. Mark my words. Save this episode. I'm probably going to catch a giant.
Okay.
I think Paul Eidman is ready to come in. But yeah, we'll have videos coming out from NYC Stripers and also from Fishmonger Sunday. We will be back next week. Who's the guest next week?
Next week we got I don't even have to look. I remember Sandy Kennedy.
Sandy Kennedy, Jersey fishing girl on Instagram. Or what's her tag? Remember, I knew her.
Remember everyone's tags now too on social media.
She has Sandy a tag, Kennedy, and I said, "Who is this woman?" And then I knew Sandy Kennedy, and I knew this tag, and then I found out all of a sudden it's the same person. That'll be cool to talk to. Really cool multi-species angler female from the Pine Barrens, pretty much. We've been trying to get her on for a while. Pretty much going to close the show out with Paul because I've already done anything. There's nothing left to do here. We're done till next week. Hopefully we'll be back talking about my double-digit blackfish on the fishmonger and big striper. Maybe we could get Katie Lynn on the NYC striper trip and she could go for a skillful angler while she throws up the whole time.
Yeah, I don't know if she's solved that seasickness problem yet, but
I think she might be willing to die to go after this 10th one. I don't know, but it's possible. I would get to the beach. You're seeing all these videos of people killing them off the beach. You get seasick, you need a striper, take a ride down to the beach.
Yeah,
I mean,
but dude, it's the whole, social media phenomenon that you don't see.
It's not as good as it looks.
You don't see well, you do see it. Look at Pete. Look at Pete's Elites or Elite Pete.
Yeah,
Dude went striper fishing, surf fishing. He's on his dozenth time in a row with no fish.
I think he's in the wrong spot.
I'm sure he's not going to the same spot over and over again, I would hope. But the point is,
the whole point is surf fishing sucks. That's the point. It's terrible. I'm sorry I even brought up this topic. Can we please bring the guest in now?
The guest should be ready in a second.
All right. Eddie Mackin's Rippin' Lips fishing trips. Eddie is still continuing to do trips, continuing to do the red eye. The walleye bite continues to be pretty decent on jerk baits and jigs. Eddie's still on the walleye. There's a good white perch bite. The hybrid striped bass are hit or miss. Chicken livers. The pontoon boat is coming out of the water this week for the season. So the pontoon boat trips are pretty much done for this year. But his boat is still in the water. So if you're looking to fish Lake Hopatcong, book Eddie Mackin's Rippin' Lips fishing trips today. Okay, so we do have our guest. He is the founder of the Menhaden Defenders, Mr. Paul Eidman. founded maybe somewhere in the ballpark around 25 years ago, unofficially. Paul, welcome to the NJ Multi-Species Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
What's going on, Paul?
So much.
So,
great to see you in the sort of flesh, digital flesh.
Yeah, well, trying to get our producer Deuce is always trying to get us to like record live episodes. I said, dude, it's hard enough to get people to sign into Skype. You want me to tell them to drive and meet us somewhere? Think we're trying to kidnap them. But anyway, so just to start off, before we get into anything, do you want to just give a quick kind of background / history of the organization, just for anyone who hasn't heard of it? Because I know, like, you've been around since 2000. You said around 2000. I've been saltwater fishing for 16 years or so, and I hadn't heard of your organization until 2 years ago. So I think a lot of people may not have come across it, depending on what sites they frequent and whatnot. So if you want to just before we get started, just want to give like a quick background / history of it, just the important parts.
Sure. Well, I guess earlier than that, just first and foremost, I'm a fisherman, and I spent over a decade in the BASS world. I did my time in freshwater. I've been fishing since I was 4 years old, so I go way back. And I grew up on the shores of Long Island, saltwater fishing, and then came to Jersey, and I saw what was going on the water. And I guess it was in the mid 80s. I had a purse seine net stretched around my boat, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. And they were pursuing these bunker in the water. And I was like, this is just the weirdest thing. Like, what gives you the right to take all these fish? And I was fishing there. I was actually live lining a bunker for stripers at the time. And the guys were, cursing me out. These commercial guys were yelling at me. And I was like, hey, I was here first, and they were trying to use this breakwater in the bay behind me to entrap the bunker, which later on I found out was illegal. So I threw my anchor overboard, and I was like, I'm not moving, sorry. And that kind of started this whole thing. And turns out, that they weren't abiding by the rules. They were just, raping and pillaging. And fast forward, I met a guy named Bruce Franklin, who wrote a book called The Most Important Fish in the Sea. And I had already been into this for a while, but I was all on my own. And he became my mentor, and we became tight friends, fishing together and everything. And he recently passed, by the way. But incredible. I mean, he gave the whole story, of the Menhaden all the way back to the Indians, and then how this fish has been so controversial. So, after seeing the decline of the striped bass, it related directly to the exploitation of the bunker. So I was like, hey, let's do something about this. And I got involved in the background legislatively, going to Washington, D.C. and lobbying and trying to get people to pay attention to this little fish that was being ground up for fun and profit, at our expense. So that's how Menhaden Defenders was born. And since then, it's gone through, man, we've had just decades of just wildness. And I guess our claim to fame is back in around 2011 or so, Menhaden were declared overfished, and overfishing was occurring, which means that they're being removed faster than nature can produce them. That's fisheries management's talk. Let's see.
Well, yeah, you don't have, you can take a breath. So now this is basically, I mean, it's kind of the story that I thought, like I thought I knew the story, right? And it's similar to what you're telling here. Basically, and I started off freshwater fishing too, and I haven't been fishing anywhere near as long as you. And the only relatable thing in freshwater is kind of, I guess, the herring on Lake Opakong. I don't know if you've ever been up there.
Of course.
The herring on Lake Opakong, they're like gold. They make that place what it is without.
Yeah, well, they're landlocked, aren't they?
Yeah, it's all landlocked in there.
Yeah.
But they have the herring there, natural reproducing and everything like that. And the bait shop over there, Dow's, they have their licenses to harvest them, and I'm pretty sure they're the only place that can harvest them. And they sell them for bait, and obviously they harvest a good amount of them, but the lake can keep up and the fish reproduce and the environment is great and everything works out great. So to parallel it with the bunker, I guess these guys, were there no rules, or were they all just breaking the rules? Like how did they overfish the bunker?
Well, that's where I was headed. So
I was just giving you a breather.
No, it's good. So to compare it to Lake Opakong, if you fish for hybrids there, for example, you'll see that the hybrid stripers ball up the herring and they come to the surface, and then they attack. And if you're lucky enough, you can throw top waters and do your thing. But that's just a little micro version of what occurs in the ocean. It's the same exact thing. The striped bass ball them up, they attack. Hopefully you're there when the blitz occurs, and it's a beautiful thing. The commercial people, mainly Omega Protein, which is based out of Reedville, Virginia, which is very important, they use spotter planes from thousands of feet up to find the fish, and then they direct the ships to encircle the schools of bunker, and then the mothership, shall we say, comes over, and then they vacuum them on board, and then they race back to Reedville, and they chop them up for aquaculture, fish farming, and cat and dog food. So
are they allowed to go wherever they want? Like, is there a boundary, or they could just keep going?
Well, in every state, aside from the state that they're in, they must stay in federal waters. Okay, so aside from Virginia, they can fish in Virginia in state waters. They can't cross the bay, the Chesapeake Bay, over to Maryland, because they are not allowed to fish in state waters. And so if they come to Jersey, they have to stay outside what we call in the EEZ, the exclusive economic zone, or the 3 mile line. They can't cross that.
Okay. At any point in time in the past, were they allowed to? Like, wasn't there a rule in the not so distant past that they could fish in the bay, or am I mistaken?
In our bay, in Raritan Bay, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a rule
in the early 2000s, I was part of the movement to push them out, and believe it or not, at that time, the bait netters were on our side. They were with the recreational people because they knew that if Omega came in with their giant ships, it would decimate them. So they were pushed out. Other states joined in, and that's what left only Virginia with this state ruling. But getting back to what I was trying to say, back in 2011, when they declared it, overfishing was occurring. This is the ASMFC I'm talking about, the Atlantic States Marine Fishery Commission. They're the ones that manage this fish. And so when they did that, we fought to implement a catch rule and to reduce the amount of catch to allow the fishery to come back. And we won. Okay. And that's really what started everything that you're seeing on the water. So in the first season, 2013, I don't remember how many thousands of metric tons they were cut, but it cost them millions and millions of dollars in a year, until, all you have to do is give these fish a chance and they come back in spades. Okay. So all of a sudden, every year we started seeing more and more and more. And then at the same time, we're seeing more stripers. We're seeing the influx of humpback whales that we've never seen before. In 2010, when I first started doing the whale thing, there were 5 named whales in New York, in the New York Bight. Now there's over 400. So to give you an idea of the impact of this little fish, it's epic. We have more dolphin and whale watching boats here right now than they do in Cape Cod. That's like,
yeah, and
that's insane.
And you're not exaggerating. I mean, I'm out there enough to see this happening. You know, I was out there when you didn't see it happening, and I'm out there now when you do see it happening over the last couple of years. And I definitely noticed. You definitely noticed the fishing in the bay change. I mean, I thought so at least, but and this is what see. And Joe, I don't know what you think about this, but like I thought this was going to be a pretty straightforward topic. But when we made a post about it, there was just as many people like on either side of the fence about this. Which to me, and I didn't know enough about it, like it seemed kind of crazy to me. I don't know about.
Well, some people on there were blaming agricultural things. They said that they're saying there's not as many bunker now in the Chesapeake Bay because of the agricultural runoff or something.
Yeah, so the people that shall we say are on the other side of this are from the Chesapeake Bay region, okay? And they are most likely relatives of the Bayman and or the Omega Protein employees. But every recreational fisherman, bar none, is, F Omega, like they are destroying the best. And I have to say that the Chesapeake Bay is a separate conversation than the one we have here in New Jersey. But what ties the two together is that 80% of our striped bass come from the Chesapeake. And if they're being screwed over and they don't have enough food to eat, we in turn, our fishery will go down the toilet. We can't rely on the Hudson stock to carry our recreational fishing here forward.
Well, and most of at least the big ones, I'd say almost all of them migrate in both directions, right? I mean, I don't think when they get that big, they're not really hanging around anywhere all season or anything like that.
No, it's a temperature thing.
I know someone asked too, does the bunker serve any other purpose to the ecosystem other than just being eaten?
Oh, of course. We actually call that ecosystem services. So basically, they, depending on whatever size they are, like an immature one, let's say a peanut bunker that's a couple of inches long, will swim along and filter feed on smaller particulate, whereas a larger one, let's say the size of your foot, may eat copepods and other types of little marine organisms. But it's clearly the primary food supply. Basically, a bunker. This is what Bruce used to say all the time. This is a protein package. Its entire job in life is to swim around the water, eating algae and sucking in all this stuff and converting it into something that all these other creatures can benefit from, whether it's an osprey or a humpback whale or a tuna or a striped bass. They're all doing the same thing. It's all about the protein.
Now, would you say if you took it out of the commercial fishing aspect and took it to recreational, would you like to see like a limit on boats, like netting or snagging bunker for bait, or that doesn't enter the conversation at all?
It really doesn't. It's negligible. I don't even think it's 0.5% of the entire harvest coastwide. The ASMFC doesn't even regard it. Yeah.
Now,
so
how like overly efficient are these Omega boats at just scooping these bunker up? Like, can they wipe out an entire? So like when you go striper fishing, right? And I found the bunker. Here they are. And your whole, your screen's all lit up. You're seeing them all over the surface in pods. Can they wipe that all out? Like what you'd pull up on and fish in like 100-yard radius? Can they wipe that all out in one shot? Like how efficient are these boats?
Well, let's just say that the pilots that they use are the ones that are determining where to set. And they will intentionally pick a set that won't break the net. So if there was no size limit on the net, they could do what you're saying. So you're getting you're getting into a conversation that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's what we call localized depletion. So when let's say right now, okay, we have an incredible bass bonanza along the Jersey Shore. Everywhere you go, there's just acres and acres of bunker. The guys are all fishing, they're live lining, they're doing their thing. If 7 of these Omega ships were to pull in tomorrow, God forbid, it'd be over. All the whales gone, all the bass gone. Like it's that fast. We don't really see it as much here because they don't come up here, but they've decimated the Chesapeake Bay, and it's because of this. So they net right at the mouth of the bay. So the bunker aren't swimming into the bay. It's too late, and then the ones that do go into the bay are 3 inches long, and they don't want them anyway.
Now, I'm not, I'm going to ask this question. It's a little weird. I'm not trying to find the silver lining in this. I'm genuinely curious. Is there any correlation between our striped bass fishing, especially in the bay, took a big jump up recently? Is it because now we have more bait than them down there, and it's a better spot for the bass to hang out on their migration because we don't let the boats in close to do this?
I would say yes. They actually 2024 was the first time they've been here 6 times. It's the most they've ever been up here. And that, to me, if they're steaming 300 miles north to catch fish, that to me is a really, really dangerous sign, because that means there's nothing above us and there's nothing below us. So we're sitting on the biomass. What we want as anglers is for the bass to set up here, and for them to, the bunker to set up here and to be as abundant as possible. So in the fall, when all these bass come south, they sit here right on them and they don't move. And then we go wild for months, and then the water temperature obviously drops and they travel southward. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
You did say before, if that Chesapeake Bay fishery does dry up, that ours is going to take a shit as well. So if this pattern currently that we're on continues, it's going to be a problem.
I would say definitely. The ASMFC just released their Young of Year study for the Chesapeake. It was the 6th year of a downturn in the striped bass population. They do a Young of Year study in each of the main. They do it in the Hudson, they do it in the Delaware, they do it in the Chesapeake. These are all contributing to the overall coast-wide bass stock. But I want to be a little careful here and say that the striped bass conversation is a little different because there are issues in that fishery itself, okay, without the bunker. The Menhaden Defenders' whole job is to make sure that Menhaden are as abundant as possible so that that every creature that depends on them will thrive.
Now, I don't think I know enough about this. I don't have enough information about it to have a really great opinion on it. But my opinion on it anyway would kind of be my opinion on most things, where I try to find the middle ground, right? So right off the top of my head, I'm thinking would I want no commercial boats to ever be able to net bunker for whatever they make with it, which I'm sure has importance to people? No, not necessarily. But obviously you want them to have to follow enough rules where that they can't put this fish in danger, right? Are we having technical difficulties again?
Yeah, I'm a little blurry. It's a story of my life.
That's all right. It's kind of small. I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay. Let me just back up a second on what you're saying. Is this something we can fix?
Deuce, is that all right?
Can you pause it?
We'll just chop that out.
Okay. So
well, hold on. Give him a second to get it started.
So getting back to what you were saying, where were we anyway? Help me.
Well, I gave my opinion basically that
about who's harvesting.
I try to stay in the middle ground, and I was wondering, what do you think?
Right.
Like,
well, I guess for everybody, the basic information it is very, very important. So overall, coast-wide, you have a Maine to Florida fishery for Atlantic menhaden specifically, not Gulf menhaden. That's a separate deal. Okay.
Okay.
The Atlantic menhaden fishery coast-wide is divided up into two sectors. Bait, which means not bait like for you and I. It means bait for like lobster and crab traps, meaning they're catching a whole bunker, they're putting it in a trap, they're sending it down, and something is eating it. That's the whole fish.
Okay.
The other side is called reduction. Okay. And there's only one company left that does reduction, and that's Omega Protein. Okay. So they have 75% of the quota, and the bait guys have the rest. Okay. It's important to note that right here in New Jersey, a company called Lund Seafood has 11% of that. So they are the second largest harvester behind Omega.
Okay.
Is that a little clearer?
This is like a health food store product?
No, not at all. That's what we call nutraceuticals, fish oil. That is just a very, very slim part of it. It's predominantly used for dog and cat food and fish farms. Okay, the parent company of Omega Protein is Cook Seafood, and they are like a $3.8 billion fish company, and they have fish farms all over the world. So when they bought Omega Protein back in 2017, they were trying to vertically integrate and maintain their own food supply. Just so happens that they're a foreign-owned company. They're in Canada. They take the fish from American waters and they ship them all over, and we wind up with nothing.
Now, let
me
me
ask
you
word
this.
It like that, it sounds like shit.
It does. It sounds terrible.
Well, I'm straight shooter. That's the reality here.
Now, how do you I'm getting the picture in my head of like whale wars, that you're out there on a little dinghy, like going towards these big boats, and they're shooting water hoses at you, and that's not really happening. So how do you actually fight these guys through litigation?
Yeah, it's well, there is right now there is a lawsuit against them, which is fascinating in itself. One of the things that I love about Bunker is that the rabbit holes that you go down, it's mind blowing. Like, this is really, really a tricky subject.
I mean, this is the multi-species podcast, but we've never had a guest so excited about Bunker before.
I know, it's so weird. It's I never in my when that first boat set its net around me in 1986 or whenever the hell it was, I never ever thought that the next thing I would be talking about, Bunker in the Chesapeake or it's just taken me on such a wild ride. It's very, very exciting.
And you know what? Like, I just, like when you said before, like the guys that would have been arguing with us from the other side were all, probably related to that guy. And no, it was actually other anglers. And I think that, and I don't know, this, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this isn't like an all out war on all commercial fishing or anything like that.
No.
Seems to be a very specific, and now that you told me it's a Canadian company, I mean, screw them. I thought it was an American company. I was going to try to find the middle ground. Screw Canada.
They're American workers. So, man, now you just blew my mind here.
I know we're crazy here. Usually
go bunker fit. Do you ever go out fishing for bunker? Or do you target them?
I target them to use as bait.
You enjoy catching bunker,
or crab with them. I'm just I mean, I'm a conservationist. Okay, I'm not a preservationist, so there's a big difference.
Oh, that's what Joe says all the time. He's a conservationist, not an environmentalist. There's a difference.
Exactly. I'm not looking to make a petting zoo out there. I'm looking to have everybody, benefit. And the fact is, if Menhaden Defenders does its job right, everybody wins. Even Omega Protein would win.
Let me ask this. Now, how does Menhaden Defenders, for people that are watching and maybe they feel very strongly about this, how do you actually get involved with Menhaden Defenders? Who funds it? Do you guys take volunteers? How do you operate?
Well, right now we have a petition, and we've drawn an imaginary line from Montauk Point to Cape May, and that is the New York Bight. And the petition is requesting from the Secretary of Commerce that omega protein not be allowed to reduction fish in that area, because it has become such an environmentally sensitive area, in addition, obviously, to hurting every fishery that depends on this.
And that's inside the 3 mile line or both altogether? Like from
they're
New
already
York?
not allowed in
Out,
the 3 mile line.
Right. So it's from the 3 mile line out to that diagonal line.
So they would still be able to fish from New York to Cape May, but outside the 3 mile line?
No,
Joe, what is wrong with you?
They wouldn't be
This
able to
is a
fish
new
at all.
line. The 3 mile line, they currently cannot fish within the 3 mile line.
Okay,
right
so that's
now.
what
That's
I'm
the current
asking.
rule.
Where's the new? How far out is the new line?
It's an imaginary.
I know. Honestly, I never measured it. It's about as long as Long Island, which is 4 hours out. You know.
Oh, so you pretty much just don't want that. You don't want them here at all. They're just out in the petition. They're gone.
You don't want them netting the bunker that the striped bass are using to stick around and that everyone's fishing it. Like, just don't want them to interfere with the ecosystem where the recreational fishermen are fishing, is what it sounds like to me.
Right. And I want to be very clear that this is all about the unsustainable practices of omega protein. We don't feel that the bait fishermen that I mentioned before are fishing unsustainably. If omega protein wasn't doing what they're doing, these guys could go out and come back in every day, and the stocks would not be affected.
Yeah, and it sounds on. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you're biased, and I'm getting a little bit biased here listening, but it kind of seems like if omega protein was allowed to do whatever they wanted to do, they'd literally wipe themselves off of out of business.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you should say it like that, because if they were on this podcast, they would say exactly the opposite. They were like, hey, my grandpappy did this. It's my God-given right to do this, and we're following all the rules, and, get out of our way.
Well, are they following the rules? Do the rules need to be changed, or are they not following the rules?
Wow. No, they are definitely following the rules. However, they have the system wired. Okay. So the mere fact that they're continuing to exploit the Chesapeake Bay the way they are is proof of that. Okay. If we know that the Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary, and when I say estuary, I read that as nursery. Okay. This is a nursery for everything that's important to the East Coast, and they're allowed to just rape and pillage. Okay. Yes, they now have a Chesapeake Bay quota, but it's still not enough. The bay, like you mentioned before, there's ag problems. There's all kinds of runoff. There's the bay itself is dying a death of 1,000 cuts. And at this point in time, they need to stop omega from fishing inside the bay, kick them out to the 3 mile line, and let the bay heal. Let the striped bass come back. Let the crabs come back. Let's work on the other stuff. You know what I mean? It's just too much of a hot potato right now.
Yeah, and I mean it's hard to argue that, and I guess I'll go back to thinking that there probably is a middle ground. I know I said screw Canada, but I do understand that it's plenty of American jobs and stuff. But I feel like there has to be some kind of middle ground, right, where they're allowed to harvest a certain amount of these fish. I mean, do they have quotas, right? When they bring them back to the dock, someone's checking to make sure they didn't keep too many, I'm assuming, or is that not?
No, it goes by a total annual quota. So when they hit that number, so every week they submit a catch report. So every time they encircle one of those schools of bunker, that's noted. Okay. And then when they fill up a ship, they're all collectively steaming back, and then they weigh it, and then they tell NOAA, hey, we took X amount of thousands of metric tons this week. It's really based on the size of the plant. the plant can only take so much. Okay, and bunker goes rancid like in a blink of an eye. So they can only process so much.
We've all lost.
I just really find it interesting.
And smelled it later.
It's kind of interesting though that New Jersey kicks the Menhaden fleet out of our waters, and now the reduction fleet is coming back north to fish the Bright and ruining our fishing, and clearly they're not catching the fish down there anymore. So they have to come all the way up here, and that says a lot that they're willing to invest that much in fuel to steam all the way up here.
Yeah, and I got to imagine, as far as you said, like if one of them was on here, they'd say, my great granddad did this, my granddad did. I mean, the technology alone, the advancement in the technology alone to netting these fish, I mean, that has to be taken into consideration.
Well, this started after World War II. So when all these pilots came home, before World War II, they never used pilots for fishing. Okay, they had to go up on a really tall mast and look for the fish and then drive over and catch them. Now they have their own fleet of planes. They go up and the pilots look down and they go, "Hey, here we go. Let's go, guys." And they scoop them up. It's extremely efficient.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound good. Well, Paul, just before we let you go, like I said, the website is menhadendefenders.org.
That's correct.
And you have Facebook or Instagram tag?
Right. And Menhaden Defenders Facebook page, Instagram, and we have a website too that has a lot of information. Menhadendefenders.org has the petition where you can sign on, and we'd really appreciate everybody to sign on that cares about this.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know how much time we have, but there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention. Most importantly, though, is that some new science has arisen, and apparently the ASMFC has been allowing overfishing for 5 years now. And
the bunker, we're talking for the netting the bunker.
Exactly. So meaning the management methods that they're using are based on bad data. So the ASMFC literally made mistakes with bad data and practiced no precaution with their decisions. So that's really, really important, because that means that the baseline, the goalposts were changed internally, and we will get to the bottom of this.
I feel like they make mistakes all the time. Why do these guys make so many mistakes? Like in the opposite direction too. Like I feel like what we had. Who was on here with the sea bass?
Peter Clark.
Well, black sea bass are like 240 over or something.
Right. We had Peter Clark on here telling us that, and we're like, why do they want to increase the recreational anglers regulations? Like where's the data? Like what's going on?
Yeah, and I always say, if you want to save stripers, you open up the black sea bass fishery, because all the party boats now that are targeting bass, they're just appealing to guys that want to fill coolers. Well, there's not a better eating fish than a black sea bass. So, let them, if the quota is in fact over 200% where it needs to be, then let it rip.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
When we do group trips, we usually do sea bass trips to make sure everyone catches fish.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, we're using braided line with jigs and stuff, and it's a panic. There's no bait. It's a good time. But it's too short. And like everybody's out there catching fluke in the middle of summer, and you get some really, really nice black sea bass, and you got to throw them back. So that
seems weird. A lot of our regulations just seem weird. I'm definitely with you on that. Makes you wonder.
Let's make sure
if I could just
points.
Maybe I'll give you a little clip of the lawsuit that's in play right now, because this will seal the deal. You ready, Chris?
Sure.
Okay. So basically, what they did was this is about the American Fisheries Act. All right. What they did was they imposed a citizen requirement. And what that means is any vessel that fishes commercially in U.S. waters must be owned and controlled by U.S. citizens. Okay? Back in 2017, like I said, Cook bought Omega Protein, which is a U.S. fishing company with dozens of vessels, for $500 million. All right? They learned that the American Fisheries Act prohibited Cook from acquiring the vessels, so the defendants created a supposedly independent domestic shell to own the vessels. So this complaint alleges that the property at issue is fish. As a result of their fraudulent scheme, the defendants have illegally harvested from United States waters many millions of dollars worth of fish to which they are not entitled. Okay, this is in the courts right now.
Okay.
And that's heavy. And not only that, the fines are retroactive to 2017. So we're talking a couple of $1 billion here.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well,
it gets muddy.
Wow.
That is, I mean, that's something. I mean, and you know what? I mean, look, I'm trying to see both sides to some extent, but it's kind of hard to not be biased because it's our fishery here that, you know, we live to fish. That's what we do. Like that's.
Well, we usually tend to just not like all commercial fishing most of the time.
Yeah, I've never been like that. I believe that commercial fishing is actually the fabric of our country. And it's really, really important, but it has to be done sustainably. You can't do this with 200-foot-long ships and airplanes. That's not sustainable. Sorry.
Yeah, the technology.
Yeah. Give me family-owned boats, you know what I mean, that go out, they take a small amount and bring it back and process it, and that's it. You don't need these giant carrier vessels.
Well, Well, Paul, I really want to thank you for taking your time to come on the NJ Multi-Species podcast. It's been an interesting combo. Pretty sure after we get feedback from this one, you'll probably end up back on here to answer more shit. But we really do appreciate it. And for anyone watching, menhadendefenders.org, that is where you could sign the petition.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. You have a
Very
good night.
good. You too.
All right, so that actually ended up being a much more in-depth conversation than I thought. Like I said, we'll probably get a lot of feedback, and he'll end up having to come back on here. We will be back next week with Sandy Kennedy and our report from the Fishmonger and our report from NYC Stripers. Hopefully it's going to be a fun weekend. Chris, I think I'm done.
You're done? All right. Well, we got, do we have the hunting report with Steve? We're going to play it out at the end of this?
I believe so. Yes, that will play after this.
All right, yeah, we couldn't have Steve live on this week, but we got he phoned in the report, so we're going to put it on after this.
Goodbye.
I think is that it?
That's it, yeah.
All right. Suffer for the fish.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Hopefully everything's going well out in the deer woods. I'm going to give you a little rut report, and a lot of this is based on what I gather from my customers throughout the state of New Jersey, some of the other states which aren't quite as important to us here in New Jersey, because this is a New Jersey podcast, and also what I'm saying. I've been actually getting in the woods quite a bit over the last 2 weeks, so I've personally seen some things that some of it correlates with what I'm hearing from my customers and some doesn't. So basically what we're looking at, this is being recorded on the 18th of November. It's interesting because I'm still seeing, I had some opportunities out there myself, none that I capitalized on, but I've had some opportunities, seen plenty of chasing and seeking. I'm also starting to see some deer, I should say some bucks hitting feed for those of us that utilize cameras, which is probably most of us. Definitely have your camera on feed if you're into baiting. I have a site that I usually keep baited with cameras on it, more of an inventory thing, and I tend to let it die down this time of year, and I move my cameras over my scrapes. But this year I left it on the feed because I've had some guys telling me they've had bucks together feeding over the last 2 weeks, which is kind of odd for this time of year. I personally haven't seen that, but I have seen bucks feeding mostly at night, which makes sense. Also, definitely still some lockdown going on. There's still bucks that are locked down, probably with third and fourth does. That may be the extent of it for them, but they're still going to move, afterwards. And a lot of that movement is midday. The temperatures have been a little better, although today was warm. And the interesting thing is I'm seeing a lot of really good bucks being taken by hunters, and also some of the more known big buck hunters, I should say, of New Jersey, guys that I watch every year. Probably we all do. I'm seeing a lot of those guys not talking too much. They're either not on that buck that they want, or they're not seeing them. They either haven't found them, or they're just not able to get on them. So it's interesting because usually probably 4 or 5 of these guys have usually scored something really nice the first week of November, and they just haven't. I only spoke to one of them, and he's telling me things just aren't the same. To me, it's a fairly normal rut. I've been out more than normal. I've seen plenty of actual chasing. I've seen plenty of seeking. I've seen the skittish does like we all do this time of year. It's fairly normal in my opinion. The other thing is you just got to keep at it this time of year. You got to be in the woods like we always say. I'm a firm believer in keeping the scrapes active. I think I spoke about it last week. Yeah, the action really fizzles down a lot this time of year, but I keep them active because the bucks, especially the mature bucks, they know where those scrapes are and they may not actually hit them. So if you have a camera focused on that scrape, you might not get a buck in it or not the buck of your dreams hitting it. But believe me, those bucks, those bigger mature bucks, as they're cruising, if they get back toward that home area, they're cruising downwind of that scrape and they're catching the scent. And it's also visual. If you're in big open woods, it's a lot easier for a buck to, stay 50 to 100 yards from a scrape. And if there's nothing there, he just keeps on moving. So I would say definitely keep your scrapes going if you got them going. If you don't, build one. It's definitely not too late. The other thing is talking about scent real quick. I start usually transitioning into my dominant buck scent, which is buck U. And the reason I do that is as these bucks start to breed the does that they can, and some of the does will start to go out of estrus, which is probably happening right now if it hasn't completely happened. The bigger bucks will definitely come out to investigate another buck in their area. So as far as scent goes, I start to transition to the dominant buck. Usually either scent wicks are probably the best. I mean, I do sometimes spray my boot and walk in, but they're not really following that. But a scent wick is great because if they catch a scent of a dominant buck, usually they'll come out and check it out. And, that's a good time to have your grunt tube on you and just do a simple social grunt. And maybe he'll walk over. And then we're soon going to be transitioning into something like freezer filler as a scent, which is a curiosity scent. And guys that do baiting will probably start to see the buck starting to really hit the bait soon. So let's see. I think we still got a week of good action here. And we'll be back in touch with you guys next week, and we'll see how things change. Good luck out there in the hunting woods.